So I grew up in a very flat, very cold area of northern Alberta, much like the rest of northern Alberta. And I dreamed from the time of seeing mountains when I was 8 years old that I would always live in the mountains. And I became very enamored with snowboarding, even though it was only on a toboggan and we were only going down the creek by my house. And I realized, once I got to the age of about 17, that living in the cold, flat north was not really what I wanted, and riding my toboggan into the creek was not really what I wanted. So I moved to the city. And in the city, there are not really anymore, there are no mountains in the city of Edmonton, and there were a lot of toboggans, and there was something called roller derby that seemed slightly more interesting than riding my toboggan in that creek. So I took a deep breath, and I bought some skates, and I started playing roller derby, but I still realized that there were no mountains in Edmonton, and I wanted to live in the mountains. So I took a deep breath, and I moved to the mountains without my roller skates.
What's your roller derby name?
My roller derby name, I will tell you in a moment. And I walked into the Kootenay Co-op, and I saw a photocopied sign of two women bashing each other wearing 8 wheels on their feet, and I thought, I've seen that poster before. That poster says roller derby, maybe I should play roller derby while I live in the mountains. And so I showed up at practice, and there were only 6 people, and it was really disheartening, and I didn't think that I actually wanted to play roller derby. And then I realized I live in the mountains, and I could play the sport called roller derby, and I can snowboard, and then that would mean that I would have all of my cake and be able to eat it too, and maybe even smash some people's faces with it. So, on September 13th, 2010, we hosted the West Kootenay Women's Roller Derby League Mountain Mayhem, and I am Beretta Lynch. It was a tight game, very close, very tight shorts, very short skirts, and very fast 8-wheeled roller derby amongst the mountains. And so I was up against Canuck Norris, not to be confused with Chuck Norris, and she's a pretty good jammer, and I'm a pretty good jammer, and she got out in front of me, and when you get out in front of the pack in front of somebody else, it's called the lead jammer, and you want to be the lead jammer because you need to be in charge of that jam. Canuck Norris got in front of me, which wasn't cool. So I realized I needed to stop thinking about snowboarding and stop thinking about other things and think about smashing Canuck Norris, who had gotten a little bit further ahead of me than I wanted her to be. So I took a really deep breath, took some very large steps, and I smashed Canuck Norris into the suicide seats. The entire 900 people that showed up for our first game also took a very deep breath, and while Canuck Norris was okay, I'm sure she wished that I still lived in Edmonton.
Thanks.